The first glance, the galaxy was old. Older than memory, older than myth. Civilizations had risen and fallen before Earth even cooled. And among the most dominant forces to ever rule the stars was the Galactic Concord, a vast self-proclaimed dominion forged by the mightiest species in existence. They had charted tens of thousands of systems, documented every known sentient species, and either assimilated or destroyed all that dared resist. They were not explorers. They were archivists of annihilation. So when humanity appeared crawling out of its gravity well on a pillar of fire and arrogance, the Galactic Concord didn't panic. They cataloged them like they had cataloged every other upstart civilization. Earth, primitive, chaotic, inventive, was slotted neatly into the growing archives. Just another species to monitor. Another potential client or conquest. That is until they scanned a Terran warship. It started with the Trinax data fanatics and intelligence engineers renowned across the galaxy. Their sensors could penetrate black holes. Their neural databases held the mental signatures of over 2 million species. When the TNS Daunt, a Terran heavy cruiser, passed through Trinax-monitored space, the analysts acted out of routine classified dissect understand. The first scan returned expected results. Advanced alloys, power signatures consistent with high output fusion. Not bad for a species barely a few centuries into spaceflight. But then, things started to shift. The ship's core signature pulsed erratically. One moment it read as a fusion reactor, the next as a dark matter singularity. Then a power source they had no designation for. The hull seemed to phase between composite metals and organic tissue. No, that couldn't be right. Weapon systems refused to lock into any known classification. Sometimes they appeared as electromagnetic railguns, sometimes beam arrays, sometimes blank space, undefined, unwritten. Then the screens began to flicker. Not the Dauntlesses, theirs. Across Trinax command stations, across spy satellites and archive ships and deep space relay nodes, every active scan began returning erupted data. Glyphs, symbols, equations that looped into nonsense. Sensors overheated. Neural implants, fried operators screamed and clawed at their heads. Some collapsed, their minds scrambled like broken code. A few burst into flame. Spontaneous neurological combustion, the medical logs would later call it. No attack had occurred. No retaliation, just data. The Trinax sealed the event. They wiped logs, declared a systemic anomaly. But behind closed door, a classified edict was issued. Trinax vessel is to attempt scanning a Terran warship again and ever. The rest of the Concord laughed. Fear from the fearless, the Solari matriarch sneered. They are weak. So the Solari tried next. Their scanning devices were alive bioengineered symbiotes capable of interpreting molecular structures by touch. No machine interference, pure biological data absorption, flawless for millennia. They sent a tendril to brush against the hull of the TNS Vanguard. The tendril spasm violently curled in on itself and withered, like it had been burned from the inside by Tushamai, a signal too foul for life to comprehend. The Solari researchers stared at the dead organism in disbelief. Their entire species had never experienced such a reaction. Something inside the ship rejected it, one whispered. The Concord Council grew concerned, but arrogance still outweighed reason, so they summoned the Eldrin. The Eldrin didn't scan. They read telepaths of impossible strength. They could dive into their consciousness of planets, the dreams of dying stars. They'd once absorbed the thoughts of an entire moon in under an hour. They approached the TNS Justice and focused. Seconds later, half the seer circle collapsed. One began laughing and wouldn't stop even as blood leaked from her ears. Another whispered, "We are not alone in that ship. Something else is watching. Something older than light." They had touched something, and it had touched back. Panic rippled through the Concord silence spread, but still some argued. This is manipulation, growled a Dixari warmind trickery. Human fear propaganda. So the Dixari attempted foresight. One of their strengths, they sent a cadre of probabilists to run outcome scenarios for war with Terran fleets. The results, nothing, not even static. Just death. Not theoretical losses, but experiential death. Each predictor came back, screaming, believing themselves already slain. One swore he'd watched his own execution a dozen different ways, all by ships that move faster than thought. And so the directive was formed: do not scan Terran warships, do not probe them, do not read them. Do not even Miriam could try to understand them, observe from a distance, or turn away. The order was enforced in silence, and over time it became an unspoken law. Even pirates knew not to mess with Terran vessels. The conquered swept it under the rug. But legends aren't erased, only buried. And legends have a habit of crawling back, because not everyone listens. And in the shadows of forgotten systems, there were still those who asked, if you can't look inside something, what the hell is it hiding? Screams in the silence. The Vor never feared war. They were born in it, bred for it. Their species had no word for peace. In their native tongue, the closest concept was pause bloodshed. From the moment they cracked their atmosphere with fire and steel, they had sought conquest, not for glory, not for survival, for the sheer joy of domination. And they had never lost. So when whispers of haunted ships reached the VAR High Command, rumors of fleets that couldn't be scanned, of telepaths who went mad, they didn't flinch. They laughed, they sharpened their blades, where the conquered saw threats to avoid the VAR, saw opportunities to destroy. They would not scan, they would burn. The target, a Terran outpost at the edge of disputed space, minimal defense. A station orbiting a dead moon, and one lone warship, the TNS Oblivion. It was the perfect test. The VAR assembled a fleet of over 100 capital ships supported by corvettes, cruisers, dreadclaws, living boarding pods designed to pierce hulls and vomit warriors into the heart of enemy vessels. On paper, the battle would be over in minutes. The Oblivion was outnumbered, outgunned, cornered, easy prey. But war doesn't happen on paper. The VAR fleet emerged from FTL in perfect formation, snarling with kinetic firepower, and pride orders barked through command lines. Surround the Terran ship, eliminate with extreme prejudice. Take no prisoners. The Oblivion floated silently in the void. Engines, cold weapons powered down. Not defensive, not bracing. Waiting, as if it knew. The first salvo lit the dark, a wall of plasma, and mass drivers meant to obliterate shields and hull in one coordinated burst. But the Oblivion was no longer where it had been. It didn't dodge. It glided like smoke through starlight. The VAR targeting system spasmed. Missiles spun off course, beam arrays misfired. Several ships accidentally targeted their own escorts, vaporizing allies before a single Terran shot had been fired. Confusion spread, and then the voices began. It started in the communication channels. The VAR BattleNet twisted, distorted commands returned, not as words but as whispers, twisted echoes of the original message. Fire on Sector 4. On 4, Sector fire, fire, 4. Other voices slithered in. Some heard their own voices screaming. Others heard nothing at all, their ears flooded with silence so heavy it pressed against their skulls like a vice. Veteran captains barked orders, but their crews stared blankly ahead, frozen. Locked in place by what? No virus, no EMP, just presence. The first casualty wasn't a ship, it was a mine. Then another, then entire decks. VAR soldiers collapsed mid-charge, pilots convulsed in their cockpits, gunners screamed until their lungs burst. Nothing had touched them. And yet they died not from wounds but from something deeper. Something inside their own skulls. Something awakened. One bridge officer gouged out her own eyes, muttering, "It's inside the hull, inside me." Another opened a breach and drifted out into the void, smiling. Commanders panicked. Retreat orders were shouted. Engines spooled. Too late. The Oblivion moved. No thruster flare. No maneuvering bursts. One moment it was in the center. The next it wasn't. Sensors tried to lock, failed gravity wells. Warped space bent, and then ships began to vanish. Not explode, vanish. No debris, no wreckage, no radiation spikes, just gone. VAR battlecruisers, some older than human civilization, disappeared as if plucked from reality. A single message recovered from a black box months later captured the last words of a fleet captain before his ship disintegrated. He whispered, "The ship is looking at me." When the screams stopped, only the Oblivion remained, drifting, unscathed, unmoved, unbothered. There was no sign a battle had ever occurred. 100 ships, thousands of warriors, and the most savage force in the galaxy simply erased. The VAR government went dark for weeks. No statements, no blame, no explanations. When they returned, something had changed. The VAR no longer mocked the legends. They no longer challenged Terran space. They no longer spoke of the Oblivion at all. The battle became a rumor, then a ghost story, then silence. But in the archives of the conquered, a single file remained locked behind 20 levels of clearance. A warning, not an official statement, not even a directive, just a note. Scrawled in haste, unsigned, untraceable. They didn't build those ships to fight, they built them to contain. Project Eclipse. The Zelnari did not believe in fear. They called it a flaw, an evolutionary misstep. A hindrance clung to by lesser minds. Where others saw danger, the Zelnari saw data. Possibility, insight. They were not warriors. They were architects of reality. Their minds operated in dimensions no other species could perceive. Time bent for them, space whispered its secrets. Their technology didn't interface with the universe, it rewrote it. So when rumors of Terran warships reached their high council, the Zelnari didn't flinch. They laughed. Mass hysteria said the overseer of cognitive mechanics, mammalian mythology. They had never encountered Terrans directly, never faced them in war, never even opened diplomatic channels. Why would they? Humanity was an enigma, yes, but an inferior one. To the Zelnari, fear was what happened when primitive species stared into the unknown and couldn't understand it. But they could. And so was born Project Eclipse, a single vessel, no weapons, no crew trained in war, just scientists, brilliant, arrogant, and unshakably confident. It carried the most advanced scanning array ever created, capable of penetrating event horizons, translating quantum noise, unraveling the DNA of suns. Its mission was simple: observe and dissect a Terran dreadnought. The ship they selected was the TNS Eclipse, a heavy-class warship patrolling a quiet system along the border of Terran space. The Zelnari approached with absolute stealth. No transmissions, no emissions, no contact. Their vessel existed between pulses of reality, untraceable by any known detection method. And yet the moment they activated their scanners, something happened. The Eclipse turned, not evasively, not as a patrol maneuver. It faced them. On the Zelnari bridge, no alarm sounded. No weapons fired, but every mind on board froze. The crew, all brilliant, all enhanced with neural lattice overlays, felt something impossible dread. No one spoke. No one moved. The lead scientist, a being who once decoded the death thoughts of a collapsing god star, found his hands trembling. How he whispered, there was no way the Terran ship could have detected them. They were invisible to space itself. And yet, the Eclipse had turned, not randomly, not probabilistically. It had noticed. Then came the failure cascade. Instruments began flickering. Life support faltered. Not failed, faltered as though uncertain whether to exist. Their multi-dimensional drives collapsed into three-dimensional mass. Gravitation inverted lights, bent sideways. And still the Terran ship made no move, no aggression, just watching. That was when the lead scientist blacked out. He awoke in nothing. No walls, no sound, just void being. Shapes shifted in this distance, crawling through the darkness like thoughts that didn't want to be known. Eyes opened and closed in spirals of light. Some looked through him, others looked into him. He felt them judging not his actions, not his species, his existence. Then came the voices, not in sound, not even in language, but meaning. Do not look, he screamed, and woke up. The Zelnari bridge was silent. Everyone else was dead. Their eyes wide, their mouths twisted into perfect circles of eternal, silent screams. No trauma, no injuries, just gone. Their minds erased like faulty code. The Terran dreadnought had not fired a single shot. It had simply returned the gaze. The ship was found days later by an automated Concorde salvage drone drifting cold in space. No damage, no sabotage, no radiation. Just a single survivor curled in a fetal position in the corner of the lab, whispering nonsense in 13 languages. The Zelnari High Council tried to bury it. The mission logs were corrupted digitally, biologically, spiritually. The data had not been deleted. It had been unwritten. No backups remained. No equations survived. Just one final journal entry pulled from a quarantined neural archive written by the lead scientist moments before the scan. If knowledge is power, then what is a truth that kills the mind? I think I'm about to find out. The Conquered reconvened. The council went into emergency session. This was no longer legend, no longer myth. Something was watching back. For the first time in millennia, the Zelnari had no explanation. And if they couldn't understand it, no one could. You were warned. The Dlik never sought conquest. They were archivists, historians, keepers of forgotten truths and ancient echoes. Their ships carried no weapons, only libraries. Their captains held no military rank, only knowledge. Where others mapped the stars to control them, the Dlik sought only to understand. And of all the mysteries the galaxy held, none were more tantalizing than the Terrans. Not their rise, not their wars, not even their silence. It was their ships. The way every civilization that tried to scan them had failed. The way even the most arrogant species now avoided them. The way no one talked about why. The Dlik didn't want power. They wanted answers. So they sent a vessel, the Seeker's Gift, a small ship, unarmed, unassuming. Its mission was not to engage, not to interact, not to interfere, only to observe. For weeks, the Seeker's Gift trailed a Terran fleet in silence. No scans, no transmissions, just passive recordings of movement energy, signatures, formation patterns. The Terran ships never acknowledged them. Until one day one ship stopped. The TNS Omen. The rest of the Terran fleet continued on, but the Omen remained dead still in space. Watching, the Dlitz crew froze. They hadn't scanned, they hadn't sent a signal. Nothing. But somehow it knew. Captain Kethril, a seasoned Dlitz explorer with 300 years of stellar mapping under his belt, stood on the bridge staring at the motionless silhouette of the Terran vessel. "It hasn't fired," his second-in-command said quietly. Kethril nodded. "Then perhaps it's waiting." For what? Kethril didn't answer. He gave the order. One passive scan. Minimal bandwidth, no intrusion. Just enough to understand why it had stopped. The signal reached out careful like a whisper at the edge of a sleeping giant's dreams. Then every screen on the Seeker's Gift went black. The ship trembled violently. Consoles sparked, lights shattered, artificial gravity reversed. Slamming crew against the ceiling, then floor, then ceiling again. Then ceiling. Then came the voices, not over the intercom. Inside their minds, memories, but not their own. A war without name. A sky on fire. Worlds reduced to screaming ashes. Vast machines rising, not built but summoned. Crew members screamed, some wept, others chanted phrases in forgotten dialects. One collapsed, whispering. The cage is cracking again and again. Kethril fell to his knees, clutching his head as the vision poured into him like molten steel. The Omen wasn't just a warship, it was a vessel of memory, a tomb, a warning, a thing that remembered what it was built to contain, and it had noticed them. Through the mental storm, a single thought cut through the chaos. A voice, cold, vast, final. "You were warned." Then silence. The Seeker's Gift reappeared 5 days later, drifting near the outer edge of Concord space. Intact, untouched, but wrong. Every member of the crew was alive. Every mind was broken. Kethril sat motionless in his chair, his eyes blank, lips parted, breathing slow and shallow. He never spoke again. The others mumbled nonsense, fragments of songs in languages that didn't exist, in equations, describing impossible geometries. Stories of things that lived between seconds. The Dlik High Council quarantined the ship, sealed the records, and issued a silent decree. There would be no second mission, no further observation, no analysis, no questions, because now they understood. You didn't need to scan a Terran warship to go mad. You just needed to be seen by one. In the deepest halls of the Dlitz archives, a single note was added to the restricted section. It read, "Terran vessels are not weapons. They are memories given shape, and memories can hurt you." The Revenant trap. In the criminal underbelly of the galaxy, whispers had value, secrets were currency, and to the Caesari that made Terran warships the ultimate prize. They weren't scientists, they weren't conquerors. They were scavengers, smugglers, warlords, and data thieves. They didn't care about ethics or warnings or cosmic horror tales passed in hushed tones. They cared about intel, the kind of intel that could cripple empires or be auctioned for trillions on the black markets of forgotten moons. So when they heard of warships that defied logic, that shattered minds, that the most powerful governments refused to even look at, they didn't run. They plotted and they planned a trap in a dead system. No planets, no life, no patrols. They staged a fake distress call, a derelict cargo hauler rigged with scanners powerful enough to dissect neutron stars, a hidden relay buried in a nearby asteroid, set to beam out the moment any data was captured. Clean, silent, invisible. The idea was simple bait, a human ship in record every detail, then disappear. It was perfect, until the TNS Revenant arrived. From the outside, the Revenant didn't look impressive. It was smaller than the dreadnoughts in the legends. No glowing runes, no spiked silhouette, just a Terran destroyer. Sleek matte black, no insignia. Quiet. Caesari Commander Creel smirked. "This is it," he scoffed. "The Ghost Fleet sends a minnow." He nodded to his tech team. "Scan it." The scanners activated. Nothing happened. No explosions, no screaming, no madness, no system failure, just clean, stable data flow. The readings came in steady hull composition, energy output, engine type. Normal. Too normal. Creel exhaled a relieved laugh. "See all superstation, we have the data now." Then he froze. The screen showed nothing. No heat signatures, no EM spectrum, no gravitational displacement, no mass. According to every sensor, the Revenant was not there. Creel's smile died. "No, that's not possible. Run diagnostics." His engineer's voice trembled. "The scanners are functioning. It's returning null because it wants us to." Creel turned his voice a snarl. "What the hell does that mean?" "It means the tech whispered it. Let us scan it." And suddenly every light on their ship flickered. Not the Revenant's, theirs. The hum of the engines stuttered, faltered. The air grew heavy, like breathing through syrup. The floor creaked. Then, the whisper came, not through comms. In their minds, Creel staggered as his vision shifted. He wasn't on the bridge anymore. He was somewhere else. A battlefield. Endless blackened corpses of ships littered the void like bones scattered after a god's funeral. The sky bled static, the stars had no warmth. And there in the center, the Revenant, not a ship but a thing, wearing the idea of a ship, twisting, flickering, reshaping with every breath. He saw its insides not metal but memory. He felt its hunger not for fuel but for attention. He understood it had been asleep for so long. And now they had woken it. He vomited. His body screamed. He tore his mind back into the real, gasping as he collapsed on the deck. But he wasn't alone. All around him, his crew writhed, some screaming, some whispering. One stared into nothing. Blood running from her eyes, another began to laugh. A dry cracking sound that didn't stop even when his jaw dislocated. Across the room, a console blinked. Transmission complete. What did we send? Someone sobbed. Creel dragged himself to the panel. The data had been transmitted, but not to the Caesarea, not to the relay. To somewhere else, somewhere deep, somewhere unmarked. Somewhere, waiting. And the Revenant, it moved, not forward, not sideways. One moment it was outside. The next it was inside, not in the hangar. Inside the ship, inside them. The walls bled static. Screens melted into patterns of screaming faces. The air howled with memories that didn't belong to anyone still alive. One by one, SCi-Fi crew members dropped not from bullets, not from blades, but from revelation. A knowledge they were never meant to possess. And the ship whispered again, "Your debt is paid." Then silence. When recovery teams arrived weeks later, nothing remained. No ship, no crew, no debris. Just the relay signal, corrupted and looping the same fragment of code. Built not to conquer, built to contain, built to forget. Elsewhere, far across the galaxy, archive drones stirred. In ancient black sites buried beneath forgotten moons, red lights blinked for the first time in centuries. And across dead sectors where no Terran ship had flown for decades, the warships began to move. Ships no longer assigned to fleets, ships no longer on record, ships that had once been prisons. The Conquered called an emergency session. The sealed order was reissued. No species, no matter how brave or foolish, was to scan, follow, or track a Terran ship again. But it was too late, because someone had opened the door, and something inside was now awake. The coordinates. The signal took years to arrive. It passed through dead stars, slipped beneath sensor nets, dodged patrol routes, and whispered across the void like a memory clawing its way back into existence. And when it finally reached the forgotten relay station drifting near the edge of the galaxy, a console blinked to life for the first time in decades. One message, coordinates. No one should have seen them. The sealed order had buried all trace of such places, wiped the charts, destroyed the archives. Sectors marked not with names but with silence. But someone had been watching anyway. Vaya. For over a decade, she had hunted the truth, a rogue historian, scavenger of forbidden knowledge and outcast among even the most unhinged data cults. Vaya had followed the legends from system to system, tracking the aftermath of every whisper, every vanishing, every tale the galaxy dared not tell. She had watched the footage of the Dlisi's return, read between the corrupted lines of the Zelnari's final logs, pieced together Caesarea fragments with trembled hands and sleepless eyes. And now the truth had found her. Her ship wasn't much patched together from stolen hulls and repurposed jump cores, but it was fast, silent, and completely off the grid. No transponder, no registry, no alliance. Just her and the void. As she approached the coordinates, her systems began to fail. Not all at once. First, her navigation lost calibration. Then the sensors began returning recursive data, false echoes and shapes that weren't there. Then her artificial gravity flickered, flipping briefly as if something beneath her ship pulled at reality like a dying breath. The void itself seemed to push back, like it didn't want her to come any closer. But she did, because Vaya didn't believe in forbidden knowledge. She believed in the right to know. Then she saw it, a shape in the dark, a massive object drifting without light or motion. A dreadnought the size of a city. It had no name, no transponder, no registration, just presence, and it hurt to look at. Vaya approached slowly. Her ship's lights barely illuminated its surface, but what she saw wasn't metal. It was skin or something that pulsed like it. The hull seemed to breathe in slow, impossible rhythms. She felt it in her teeth, in her spine, in her thoughts. It was like the ship wasn't just there, it was awake and watching her, but still she moved closer. She activated her scanners. Just one scan, that's all she needed. The data flooded in, and her mind shattered with it. It wasn't just built by humans. It was built from them, not just technology. Essence. The walls were laced with organic tissue, neurons, blood vessels, DNA markers, screams frozen in architecture. This wasn't a ship, it was a corpse. And yet, it was breathing. The data feed began corrupting, words twisted into glyphs that didn't exist. Languages flickered across her screen, none of them known. Symbols that hurt to read. Concepts that didn't belong in linear time. Her ship groaned, not from damage, from being watched. Vaya stumbled back from her console, gasping as her vision blurred. She wasn't in her cockpit anymore. She was elsewhere, a place without light, without stars, and the ship was there with her. But not as a vessel, as a voice, and it said only one thing. You have seen too much. Visions flooded her. A war not remembered but buried. Terran warships. Not weapons of war but cages. Prisons designed not to destroy, but to contain. The enemy they fought wasn't an empire. It was a concept, a force that couldn't be killed, only silence. And this ship, this forgotten dreadnought, was one of the locks. And now because of her, one of them had woken up. Her ship began to decay. Not burn, not explode, unravel, see? The walls dissolved into liquid data. Her AI screamed once, then went quiet. Her engines shut down like prey playing dead. Something was in the hull. Not physical, not digital, not alive. Just hungry. She ran. Her escape pod barely launched before the cockpit behind her was swallowed in a soundless collapse of form and meaning. As her pod tumbled into the dark, she saw it. The ship, it had moved, not positionally, not physically, but shifted like something turning over in its sleep. Its surface flickered. A heartbeat pulsed through its hull. It was waking up, and the void would never be quiet again. Inside her pod, Vaya fought for breath. She forced the comms online, though they sparked with failing energy. Her fingers trembled as she typed the only message that mattered. 3 words, a warning, a prophecy, a curse. It is awake. It is awake. The message spread faster than light. 3 words looping endlessly across emergency frequencies. Encrypted black nets and silent relays thought long dead. It is awake. No signature, no coordinates, just dread. The conquered convened in panic. Leaders screamed across holograms. Fleets were scrambled. Sealed orders resurfaced, marked with blood and ash. Ancient commands never meant to be opened. And through it all, humanity said nothing. No denial, no confirmation, just silence. But their ships moved across 1,000 systems, Terran warships. Some thought lost, others believed scrapped, began to change course. No activation orders, no shared fleet protocol. They simply turned, all of them, toward the same point. The coordinates Vaya had found. In distant corners of space, civilians watched in horror as massive hulls darkened skies once thought safe. Cargo pilots abandoned lanes. Pirate clans vanished mid-raid. Smugglers fled into asteroid fields. Not because the Terrans were coming, but because they had stopped pretending to sleep. Military analysts tried to track the movements. Tactical AIs failed. Simulations returned nonsense. Fleet paths bent physics. Some ships appeared in systems hours after being recorded light years away. Some traveled without FTL signatures. One ship was spotted in 3 places at once. Reports whispered of strange behavior. Ships hovering over ruins, remaining perfectly still for days, broadcasting no signal, only presence. And then the whispers returned, not on comms. Inside mines, station workers heard voices in empty corridors. Veteran soldiers collapsed during drills, eyes wide, whispering, "The silence is ending." An Eldrin seer attempted to probe a drifting Terran vessel. She died instantly. Not from pain, from truth. Her last words, "The prison is breaking." The conquered finally admitted what some had feared for centuries. The war humanity had fought long ago was not against another empire. It had been against something else, something they couldn't kill, something they could only lock away. And the warships, not weapons, warden shrines, crafted from memory, flesh, steel, and fear, each a tomb for an enemy that should never have existed. And now, because someone had looked too closely, they were waking up. The Caesari had broken the seal. Their data transmission intended for profit had reached a receiver no one had known still existed. A dead relay deep in null space opened a channel never meant to connect again. And something answered. Across unmarked sectors, dead stars flared once more. Derelict ships blinked online engines, screaming in unnatural harmonics, and in one forgotten system where Vaya's escape pod had been found, empty satellites record a single impossible image. A Terran dreadnought, bleeding light, changing, its hull peeled back like wings, not opening, unfolding, as if shedding its disguise. Inside Terran Command, nothing was said aloud. They had always known this day would come. Not if, only when, and now it was here. They did not send warnings. They did not broadcast fear. They simply moved. Every ship, not already en route, changed heading, all toward the coordinates. The conquered scrambled. Some begged for alliance, others threatened war. Humanity did not respond, but the skies did, because now the Guardians were converging, and the things they guarded were stirring. In deep space beneath the skin of reality, something opened its eyes. Not eyes of flesh, eyes of memory. Eyes that remembered burning worlds. Eyes that remembered Terran fire. Eyes that now saw only prey. The Dlix sealed their libraries. The Solari sterilized entire labs. The Zolnari purged reality from 10 systems to cut off the spread. But nothing helped. The transmission had gone out. The truth was loose. And understanding was now a death sentence. Vaya's message echoed. It is awake, but no one knew what it was. A being, a concept, a weapon. No one had the words, because the moment you understood it, you ceased to be you. The Terran fleets did not gather. They formed like pieces of a greater shape. Not an army, a ritual, a binding, one last effort to contain what should never have stirred. The war wasn't beginning, it was resuming, and this time they might not win. Some say Earth itself began to darken, not physically, but conceptually, as if the home of humanity was retreating from the universe, dimming behind layers of defense no one could name. Others say Earth had always been the last seal, and when it moved, the galaxy would finally end. No one heard from Vaya again, but her pod continued broadcasting one final loop over and over to anyone who dared to listen. They weren't warships, they were prison guards, and the prisoners are awake.